Welcome to the Weekly Offload, episode 8. Today we have a special guest with us, Justin Ashley. How are you, Justin?
Yeah, well, thanks, Matty.
And we also have Achilles Byrne, our NRLW expert. So on today's show, we are going to have 6 again with Justin Ashley. Then we are going to review the grand finals and have our question from our millions and millions of fans. So today, Justin, we've had a few 6 again. So you got big shoes to fill, mate. But you are our biggest guest on this show, we must say. And also, can I say, if this doesn't go well, Achilles and I might be looking for a job on Monday. We might be at Centrelink, and I'm not talking about Centrelink Surrey Hills. I'm talking about Centrelink Parramatta. You'll be in my hood.
Yeah.
So Justin, we're going to start with your 6 again. So what aspect of your character do you most attribute to your success?
I think it's a combination, to be honest. I would say early in life, competitiveness and determination defined me. So I would do whatever it took to achieve whatever outcome I needed to achieve. So that was by far and away what got me, a foot in the door, let's say. But I think later in life, I think you've got to have a counterbalance to that. So I think combining the competitiveness and determination with a real deep care and a real focus on excellence and how to do things better, and having that weird juxtaposition of trying to do things well and caring about how you do things with this relentless determination, I think it's that combination that has helped the most.
And can I ask you as well, Justin, was it hard to tame the beast, so to speak? Because
absolutely.
And how do you feel like, I would say personally, knowing you, that I think you have done well to sort of not change the way you are, but I find you more relaxed. I don't know if Achilles would agree with that.
No, absolutely.
But I think the determination hasn't changed. But yeah, how did you do that, would you say, Justin?
Having a daughter helps, I would say. As you get older in life, I think, and as you start to get more comfortable in yourself, I think a lot of that comes from a need to prove yourself, and even to some degree a lack of confidence in some ways. Because you're not where you want to be yet, you feel like you always need to prove something. And when you have achieved a lot more than what you originally thought you ever would, you don't feel that need to live up to anyone else's standards. And I think with that comes a sense of calm. And then from that, you can start to be a little bit more relaxed, I guess. I think in addition to that, you start to realize that there aren't many people in the world that are like me, right? So, I'm that unusual sort of 1% who can work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week and do it for 2 decades. That's not normal. And I don't encourage it, I've got to be honest. But that's what I'm cut out for doing that. But realizing and recognizing that that's a unique skill, but no one else has to do that, and nor should they try, because there's an inbuilt energy within me that I have always had and I will always have, but it isn't a typical thing for most people. So I think being able to understand that, and then really I think what has helped the most is being able to surround yourself with people who are your weaknesses, as opposed to surrounding yourself with people who are like you. So I've become really good over the years at understanding what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, and then surrounding myself with people who are doing the things that I wouldn't either be good at or not want to really do.
Can I just tell a quick story? So obviously, as you said, Justin, there's not that many people like you. I remember Luciano, if we can give a shout out to Luciano, having the same experience as me. So we both started at the Surrey Hills gym. And I remember both of us sort of when you'd walk in the office, if we weren't doing anything, we'd kind of be like, oh, quickly just pretend you're on the computer and like really get nervous. So I know Luciano had that exact same experience. So as you said, you're probably in the 1% of people, but that's probably in our own minds as well. You're probably busy with other things, you know what I mean? So, yeah, but I thought that was pretty funny. Experience.
At 5'9" and 70 kilos, to make Luciano at 6'1" and 100 kilos feel uncomfortable makes me feel pretty good.
Yeah, the biggest one in the room, mate. So, Justin, with what a lot of people probably might not know is you were a semi-professional soccer player. So how did your experience as a semi-professional soccer player help you in your business career?
It can't do anything but shape you from the age of 4 through to the age of 20, all I did was play football. And there's so many things that you learn from that. I was lucky enough to be involved in the NSWIS, New South Wales Institute of Sport programs, as well as play within the Wollongong Wolves team when they won the old NSL back in the day. So you're part of these high-performing squads and high-performing teams. But the thing was with me, I wasn't talented like many of the other guys. Yeah, guys who used to rock up and, be wizards on the field. And I wasn't that guy. I was the worker in the room. So I think I learned from a young age that there were two ways to win. You could either have the talent or you could have the work ethic and determination. And I only had the choice but to go with option number 2. So I think that's one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing that shaped what I do today and how I sort of behave and what I pride myself on.
Well, I think Andrew Johns said once, so obviously he's the most, I guess you could say, talented footballer in the world. He said that talent got him to a certain point, and then once he got to that point, he was like, oh, I better do something. Because he was going out with the boys. He was sort of like, I think he still did that to the end of his career too. But, he had to put in the extras because everyone does the same training, don't they, essentially? Yeah. So he was like, what can you do outside of that? Would you agree with that? You need to, I guess, do those extra 5% or 10% off the pitch as well.
Yeah, there's nothing more common than a talented failure. But I really think that it's about how can you do all of the things that matter. And the guys that I played with in soccer and football terms, one of the most famous guys is a guy by the name of Alex Brosk. So he played for Australia, many caps under his belt, played in the A-League, scored a bunch of goals. He never made our New South Wales teams as a kid. So he was always getting knocked back and knocked back and knocked back. And it wasn't until he hit about 17 years old of just pursuing this passion and being the hardest worker in the room that he really shone through. And then there were other guys who were far more talented, who were the first ones picked, who were getting signed for Premier League teams at the age of 15 and 16, who didn't have that same work ethic and never made it. So there's representations all over across all codes that usually I think determination wins out.
Would you agree, Achilles?
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
with your fighting background as well?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Like, you just got to look at all the greats have it, right? Like, perfect example, Michael Jordan and his story. Got rejected from his basketball team and he said, one day I'm going to make it. And he like, you talk to anyone, he was always there like half an hour early before training. He would stay back a couple of hours after training. He was there 7 days a week working. And he'd want to surround himself with hardworking guys. And it goes to show how many championships they won back to back.
Tiger Woods,
yeah. I just finished watching the David Beckham documentary on Netflix too. Same thing, just a work ethic. Just like even when you got rejected from the side, he'd still rock up and still train with the second team or even train on his own. So like, that excellence, everyone's got that work ethic if you want to achieve that excellence.
Now, this one, my partner suggested not to ask this to your boss, but I said, do you believe injury or talent stopped you from being a professional soccer player?
100% talent.
Polly, I told you. Shout out to the editor of the Weekly Offload, my fiance.
Look, I think there's a couple of things. I think it's a combination. I think talent is definitely a huge part of it. But I don't think the most talented players were necessarily the ones that made it. I also think there's an element of timing. There's nothing like timing. And in my world, it was the movement from the NSL to the A-League. So what that meant was 16 teams down to 8 at the time when I was 19. So it was quite challenging at that point in time to be able to make that cut, particularly when more money and internationals came back to play in Australia. So it became quite challenging. And then there's options. At that point in time, I just commenced my career working for Fitness First. So I really had a bit of a fork in the road. Do I continue to pursue this football career or do I go and chase this other thing that I look like I'm kind of good at? And so at that point in time, I made the choice to quit, soccer, to quit football at the age of about 20 years old and just focus on my career.
Yeah, that's young. I think Dan and Cam, so he does a rugby league podcast. He said a similar thing to yourself. So he said, I could have either played in the rugby league community, there's a big difference between playing 40 games and 100 games. But to him, he said in in general everyday life or to an everyday person, he said there was no difference, because he knew, he said, like, I'm a finisher, I'm not a superstar. So basically he decided, I'm gonna stop this. And then originally he was just working on the mines with Misrule, and then started a successful podcast. But we're coming for you, Denon.
Yes.
We're definitely coming for you. But yeah, it's interesting what you said, just in terms of you decided that, it's because most people at 20 would have said, oh, that's such a young age to make that decision. But then look at the success you've had now. Obviously, it's paid off.
Yeah, and I agree completely with what Denon said. I was in the same boat. I might have made it to the A-League as a bench player. I might have been in and out of the squad, but I was never going to be the best player. I might have then made it into a second division team in England or Germany, training at, -3 degrees for, a short career. I was never going to be an absolute superstar at a professional level. I didn't have the attributes and the talent to be able to achieve that. So you make the hard decision. I remember I cried like a baby. I did. I cried like a baby when I made the call to do it. It's been my lifelong dream for 16 years, and that's all I pursued. But it was a point in time where you have to make those decisions. And I made it early. I ripped the Band-Aid. But looking back, it was the best decision that I made.
This is actually not on the run sheet, but could I ask you, Justin, after you said you're upset and then thought about what you're going to do, how long did it take you to discover fitness, or how long did you need to process that you weren't going to make it?
It was funny. So the first rejection I got was I moved from Wollongong Wolves over to Northern Spirit. And so I'd been through all the processes, and I was about to get signed on hopefully a first grade contract at that point in time. I was only 18 years old, so I was really young. I could have still maintained a youth contract. So I went through the whole process. I'd left Wollongong at the time, and I went to Spirit. And then at the last minute, they said, sorry, we're going to put you out into our feeder club, which is Manly in the State League, which was still great. I'm 18 years old playing State League first grade, and I thought that was a good opportunity, but it was a bit of a setback. So I started thinking at that point in time, what else could I start to do? So I quickly got into the fitness industry off the back of uni. So it wasn't dropping one and then figuring out what I was going to do. I was already working in the industry. I already had some runs on the board. So I think the decision was quite easy at that point.
And with that, at an early age, that mature choice, like when you're that young, everyone's got like a big ego, and to put your ego aside and choose that path is like a sense of early maturity, which paid off dividends.
Yeah, I don't think it was a lack of ego. Maybe it was the opposite. I was kicking goals in fitness first. So I'm going to chase that. I'm going to chase a new trophy.
Yeah.
You're like, where can I be number one? I'm not going to be David Beckham, but I might be in the fitness world. So leading on to that, mate, how did you come up with the idea for your business? Obviously, One Playground now.
Yeah, so it's quite a journey, but ultimately it was through, like most businesses, through frustration. I'd been in the fitness industry and it had given a lot to me, but I looked around me and you could see how staff failed all the time. You had these dropout rates and it just didn't make sense to me. How can you go and spend all this money on a course, go and become a personal trainer and then quit 6 months later? I couldn't compute. As one of the guys who works with us, Emmanuel, always says, he used to be a butcher. And I love his story. He used to be a butcher. And I remember asking him about 6 months into his role, how's it going? And he says, mate, this is the easiest and best job ever. He goes, I used to carry dead carcasses across a road. And now I listen to music, talk to people in shorts and sneakers and help them get fitter and stronger. How can people not love this? And I'm of the same view. This is the best industry and the best job you could ever do in your life. So usually when people don't succeed or when they're unhappy in it, it's because of their workplace, not because of the people who've actually gone out and done the course and stepped into a role. So I kind of felt a little bit responsible to some degree, where I can help young people who go into the wrong workplace to be able to create a workplace where they get success. So one of our first people we hired was a head of education, and that head of education helped our new, coaches and trainers to be able to become good at what they do, because we knew that was an important part. So I think step one was about how do you change the experience for a staff member? And then step two, I felt like if we did that, we could change it for a member. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but you have up to 100% of members in some gyms who quit their membership every year. So they turn over their entire member base every single year.
Wow.
It's just crazy. And up to 50% of them don't use their membership at all. So I thought, hang on a second, we're out there selling this product. We're spruiking this idea of health and fitness, but the ones who really need it don't actually use it. So we hadn't really built a business, or there hadn't been a product yet or a brand yet that I felt had served people well enough where people were actually getting results and showing up and using it. So the big mission became, how do we change the environment and experience for the member? So number one, they actually want to show up, because most people hate going to the gym. And then number two, we've got amazing coaches and classes, so they get amazing results and want to keep coming back. And that was kind of the mission that we started with.
I can say, I think Achilles, you can probably attest to this too. I can say like the support that you receive at one playground is very different. As you were saying, Justin, about someone quitting, I think it's the confidence of a trainer going into a gym and being like, oh, I got to talk to people off the floor. That it doesn't feel Ollie from one playground. He says it's kind of like when you're a younger male or female and you're in a club trying to pick up. He said if you have that desperation on you, he's like, it just will not happen. But if you're just with your friends having a good time, you might meet your future wife or husband. You never know. But he said that desperation, people they feel it. Like, so at other gyms, I've had it at Fitness First in Parramatta, if I can mention them. I had a trainer come up to me actually, and I could kind of like tell. He was like, "Oh, how's your training going?" And I knew like where the conversation was going, and I'm a trainer, so I better put on some more muscle, because obviously he thought I needed a bit of help with that section. But it was that feeling of that. It's when you get sold something, and then you go home and you think, did I really want to buy that? And I think that it's sort of a dirty feeling. And I think one playground's really good at basically you getting them to tell you their goals and then working together. It's a relationship. It's not one way where they go home and think, oh, I actually didn't want that. It's the relationship. Would you agree with that, Achilles?
I just want to give Justin a bit of praise. Like me, I was a member for about 6 years, and I one playground do an academy. So I became a member. Then I did my academy with the one playground, and then became a coach. And all the while, like, you know, Justin has created this amazing culture within the gyms as a member, and now working for yourself. Like the environment that you create. And like, there's one thing that I said about yourself, Justin, is you're very approachable. The fact that you know all your trainers and even members, you're very approachable. You know everyone by name. You come up, shake our hands, and give us time of day. For the success and the CEO of a company that you have, you're very, very, very approachable and very caring. You know, and as an employee, we want to work for someone like that, and it just shows throughout the whole gym. And I think that's why you give us the experience that we can give to the members, and that's why that's probably why the success of the one playgrounds is growing strength to strength.
Mate, I'll slip you 50 later.
I was about to say sucker. But I must agree with you. I just the whole time, that's why I was smiling, because I was we were thinking the same. I was about to say sucker just in the background. I was like, that might not be professional on the podcast.
But even as a member, I'd see you walk on the floor, you'd say, "G'day, how are you?" Like I'm just a member, you know? And it's like, yeah, that's the owner of the gym, mate. It's like, not many owners of a gym, and not many people that work in a big company see it. And I get CEOs are busy, but like, you know, there's a saying, a good shepherd knows his sheep, and you know every single one of us, and which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think many people approach things the wrong way. I love being in the gym. I don't want to sit in this office that, you know, wear this suit all the time. I wish I was actually rocking up in my shorts, sneakers, T-shirt and out on the gym floor. That's what I'd love to be doing. In the role that I'm in today, I don't get to do that enough, but I still love being out on the ground, and I really think about things in a different way. I think a lot of people think of the business like a pyramid, right? Where the CEO's on the top and then the staff and the members are down the bottom. I think about it in the complete opposite way. The members are number one, the staff support the members, the managers support the staff, and then I'm right down the bottom, okay, doing my best to support everybody else.
It's amazing.
And I think that's the approach that I've tried to take in the business over many years, and I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah.
I would say Luciano's down the bottom, but I guess we'll agree to disagree on that one. So what is your vision, leading on from this chat, what is your vision for the future? This could be as long as you like, because I know obviously it's grown so much even since I've been a part of it. So this could be amazing.
Yeah, the thing that we started with is still remains the same. The core is always there. We want to change the gym environment and experience and create something that inspires a member to change. So the member walks in, they hate the gym, they walk out and they love the gym. If we can do that, we've kicked most of our goals. And part two is with staff. If we can create an environment where someone who has a job they hate starts with us and they find a job they love, then I feel like we're doing what we should be doing. Now, that's a bit airy-fairy, up in the air, wishy-washy, and there might be some things that are a little bit more quantifiable, but we don't really want to build the most gyms in the world. That's never been our goal. I feel that there's a battle between building the best gyms and building the most gyms. And most owners that start, their goal is to build the most gyms. I don't really want to do that. I don't have any desire to just build gyms for the sake of building gyms. The objective is, and the world doesn't need more gyms. What the world needs, in my opinion, is better gyms. So how can we create an environment where our members succeed, where our staff succeed, where people walk in there and they're like, wow, this is amazing. I'm so inspired. I've never seen a space like this. And, the biggest compliment I can get is, this doesn't even feel like a gym. It feels like something else. And I love hearing that, which we hear from time to time, which is amazing. So the future is to do more of that. And that's not to say that we won't grow or expand. We will. But we're growing and expanding with the view to be able to provide a great experience for more people in more places.
Yeah, love that. Quality over quantity. Love that.
Well, I was just going to say, I know Gordon Ramsay definitely listens to our podcast, so no offense, Gordon, but I have heard that he was criticized for opening too many restaurants, and that was a question he's asked many times. Also, obviously, with his TV career, but he's been asked many times, do you think you've spread yourself thin with your restaurant? So do you think that is why you keep it so small at the moment? And do you have any areas you want to say on this podcast as a first for everyone that you might be going into an exclusive?
We've got some new locations coming. I'll touch on the point you were saying about Gordon Ramsay, and I completely agree with it. If you think about Apple, so when Apple was the most valuable company in the world, want to have a guess how many products they had? 5, right?
Oh, wow.
So they were the most valuable company in the world with 5 products. So it wasn't about having the most products like most other electronic companies would do. They literally just had the best phone, the best laptop, the best iPad, and whatever else they had floating around at that point in time. But they didn't feel like they just needed to do more and more and more. And I think we're very much, we're definitely not Apple, but we have the same approach in that I would rather have one amazing gym, and we have thousands and thousands and thousands of members in our gyms, or we could open, gyms that aren't so good and they might only have 100 or 200 members. So I guess the objective is, how can we actually create a space that, the idea and vision for one playground is having one playground with endless experiences. How can you go into one space with one membership and just have everything at your fingertips? So that's kind of the goal.
Yeah, well, that is the one playground, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I know many of my clients just kind of believe that we have the wellness center in Marrickville. I don't know if you have the same experience, Achilles, but as you were saying before the podcast, a lot of people that visit Justin's gyms, they can't believe the price or just there's so much, I guess, features to
quality.
Quality.
If I could say quality, like
100%.
The facilities are great. We've got world-class facilities, especially like yourself and I, Matthew and I, we work over at the Marrickville gym, and we got that wellness center. And it's just that R factor when people walk in. It's like, oh, I've never seen, like you walk through it, it's just, So it's non-stop. And
How many?
Yeah, and then like they see the price of the gym, and it's just irrelevant then. They just want to be a part of it. And then they meet the staff and the members, and it's just, if anything, it just feels like a community, like over in the Marrickville and all the one playground gyms. But just speaking experience through Marrickville, it's just all the members just say, look, it's like family here. It's like community, everyone. It takes me 10 minutes to walk from the front to the back and shaking everyone's hand. How's everyone's morning? All my clients are looking at me going, mate, you're 10 minutes late. But yeah, just quality service.
We'll talk about that after.
Yeah. Sorry. Just quality service, quality people,
Can I just ask you, Justin, this is off track or off the questions, but just in terms of hiring staff, what do you see in someone that makes you think I need this person? What is there a quality? Because obviously I know you've hired experienced people, you've hired people with no experience. It sort of seems irrelevant, but what quality did you see in myself and Achilles? No, what quality do you see in a staff member that you think this is the person?
I think there's three things. Number one, communication. We need to, in this day and age, be able to communicate and inspire people. And ultimately, all of us are coaches. It doesn't matter what role you do. So you need to be able to articulate and get someone to do what you need them to do. Number two would be you want to be looking for signs of determination and persistence. We need to find and ask the right questions to understand that when going gets tough, is that the kind of person who's going to give up or, stray in the other direction, or is that the person who's going to push through that? And then I think the final thing is a genuine passion for the industry. If you have someone who rocks up, who smells of cigarettes and, looks like that they've never step foot in a gym in their lifetime, then the chances are they probably don't really care about it. And this is not a career or a passion, but it's just a job and a paycheck. So I think those three things combined are the main things we look for. And they can be present in someone who's got 10 minutes experience or 10 years, and they cannot be present in someone who's got 10 years experience or 10 minutes. So it's really cutting through to find those three defining features, and the rest we can teach.
And is that why, would you say, Justin, is that why you sort of at the start, it's quite, I guess not the word intense, but do you think that you like to get people on the front foot for business? Is that also a tactic, or is it just for their peace of mind as well? I've always wondered that, to be honest.
Yeah, two parts. So number one, we do 5 interviews before we hire someone. So that's pretty unique for our industry, which is usually a very short interview cycle. We want to ensure that we've got the right people on the bus in the first place. And not only are we interviewing them, but they should be interviewing us. We're not the workplace for everybody. If you're not someone who ticks those 3 boxes that I mentioned before, the chances are you won't work out. The second thing, I guess, what you're speaking about is when they first kick off. Well, the thing is, what I've realized over many years is if you're not performing really well by your 3rd month, you're probably never going to perform really well. So we want to ensure that the people that start with us get off to a great start. Great people hate being unproductive. They don't want to come in and sort of figure things out and mosey around for months and months until they really start doing work. They want to be in there and feeling useful and purposeful straight away. So while it might feel intense, and it is intense, absolutely, we're trying to teach someone all of our systems. And in the world of personal trainers, how do you be a personal trainer, a psychologist, a physiotherapist, a nutritionist? There's so many different skills that our customers expect. So we've got to teach a lot of that where perhaps the education qualifications let people down. So we've got to fill in those gaps very quickly. Ultimately, the member doesn't really care whether your qualification prepared you or whether you've got 10 minutes experience. They're paying for a service and they expect a good quality. So our expectation and our standard is that all of our staff can deliver that quality very quickly.
Can I just say, Achilles, you can talk about your personal experience too, but can I just say for myself, because I started at Fitness Playground at the time, left for England and then came back. And I found both times completely different, but it was actually my mindset, not actually what I was doing. Because the second time I probably had more on my plate in terms of the introduction and the training, but I actually found it easier than the first time. So the first time I felt overwhelmed, but it just goes to show it was actually myself because the second time around, I didn't feel overwhelmed at all. And I probably had more leads, more work, more everything. And I do remember with the other new trainers, they're like, oh, how are you finding it? And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good.
I think what One Playground has done and Justin has done is to surround the people with like-minded people. So when you come into an industry, so I was a tradie before anyone that know. I was a tradie before I became a coach. And when I came, like in the trading, when you're out in like shout out to all tradies, but you're working with plumbers, electricians. So everyone's got different like goals throughout the day. It was so refreshing to come into an industry where everyone was looking at the same direction. So I was a bit like yourself. It was like, oh, this is sort of easy. And I think too that like you guys are really good at like what Justin was saying, to get like-minded people with a bit of drive and a bit of passion that want to move as one unit and not individually. And like when you just slot in that, and you guys are really good at picking that, slot in, it's just like a wave that you just ride. And I found that like, there was a lot of support. the team that you get chosen in. Everyone's got the same personalities. You're working with each other every day. And you got to be able to get along. And I found like the transition from being a tradie to a PT, it was just like a shoe that fits.
Yeah, I think like we're mentioning obviously the logistics and the positives, but I think as well we just have a good time. How fun is it to come to work every day?
Amazing.
I mean, with the characters we have at Marrickville, I think you can imagine. But just that, as I said, we're speaking about the positives, and that's great as well. But I just want to say my personal experience is just having fun to come to work, and that feeling.
Yeah.
I don't know if either of you've had that, but going to work that sick feeling.
Yeah.
Like you hate, well, we're not going to say we hate our boss anyway, but you hate your boss or you hate your job. Just that feeling. It's probably the worst feeling you can have if it's every day.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than waking up. Look, when I knew I wanted to transition over to be a PT, I just didn't want to be at work anymore on the job site. And I just thought, fitness has always been my passion, and it was just an easy choice. And once the hardest thing was to make the first step because I never had my certs, and it just made sense. I was training at one playground for 5-6 years, and then it just all of a sudden come up, and it was like, oh, why don't you do the industry with us? And from there on, I hit the ground running.
Yeah, 100%. So the last question, Justin, is if you had the power to change your life with the touch of a button, would you you got to be careful with this one because I know Victoria might be listening. Would you have your success in the fitness world, or would you be a professional soccer player in Australia? We have a lot of English listeners, so I must say it's football over there, which makes more sense. But would you take your life now, or would you click and then you're Ronaldo, for example?
Oh, okay. Up the stakes.
Yeah, you're not just playing in the A-League, mate. You're Ronaldo. Yeah. Would you?
Oh, okay. Well, can you have both? Is that is that an option on the table?
I guess, both. I guess, if you're going to put 100% into both, one would lead to the other. So, no.
Look, I think what I do admire about someone like Ronaldo is that he has extended outside of football and he makes such a big impact on people outside of his sport. So I think if you could use whatever you've done to be able to have a greater impact on more people, I think that's something that's worth being proud of and striving for. But 100%, I'm happy with the choice that I've made, and the choice that I made at the time 20 years ago now to step into an industry that I was brand new at. And then I think the biggest thing, it doesn't really matter. I think what matters is that you put 100% into what you do. And I think if you put 100% into what you do and you genuinely strive to be one of the best in the world at it, you're always going to be happy and successful, and everything else will come off the back of that. So I think the important thing to remember and to walk away with is going, well, what do I love? What do I think I can be really good at? And then when you make that choice, go in with both feet.
Yeah.
Don't be lazy. Don't sit there watching Netflix saying you're too busy. You're not. Spend the time that you have invested into your passion. And if you wake up every single day knowing that this is something that I love doing, then don't really get too caught up, in my opinion, on is this work, is this not work? It doesn't really matter. It's fundamentally, are you working on your passion and your purpose? I've been working 7 days a week for a long time, 6 or 7 days. I love working. I love it. And, someone who wants to sit there and say, oh, you shouldn't work so much, but it's something I enjoy.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of research and study around the greats, and what they found was their work was their hobby and vice versa. And for some people listening, they might go, oh, you should go ride a motorbike or surf, but I don't want to. I want to be in my gyms and, spend time with the people that work with me and my members. And they're the things that's part of what I enjoy. There's other things I do outside of that, of course, but I think it's about how do you find the thing that really lights you up? And then when you find that, just go all in.
And then on top of that, I just wanted to ask you, so your friends and family, have they always been supportive of, as you said, because you're working 7 days, or do they, as you just mentioned, are they saying, oh, Justin, why don't you surf or play FIFA like Achilles and Maddie? Do they say those sort of things? Because I know you did mention that.
Look, I got a full life, so I still see my friends a lot. I always make time for my family and friends, and that's one thing that I don't compromise. At the same time, of course, I have people that I surround myself with. Firstly, being empathetic and understanding about my dreams and the things that are important to me, and being supportive of that. While at the same time, I've got to make sure that together we make time for everybody. So I think it's finding that balance, and I think I've been able to do that over the years. And I think it's quite a simple equation. Get up early, don't spend too much time sitting on your butt watching TV or on the couch. And you can get a lot done in the 100 or so waking hours that you got in a week.
I love that saying, like, you surround yourself with things that you love doing, because then, like, if you start chasing that, and then your cup will start overflowing. Like, if you start chasing things that, like, get stuck in a job that you hate, or start chasing money, or like, everyone needs money to live, but like, you're never going to have enough. And I always say to the guys at the back, surround yourself with things that you love, because then you will be successful in your own way, if that makes sense. And like, and you wake up every day and you want to do those things, and it'll make life that much more meaningful.
And to that, I think success is in the eye of the beholder.
Exactly.
And I don't think that my version, or what people see my version of success to be, is for everybody. And to be honest with you, what people see from the outside is not what I see as success. What success is for me is supporting my family, being there for my daughter, supporting my wife, and being able to provide where I can. It's also about how can I create success in others. Yeah. And they're the things that really light me up. I don't care how much money I've got in the bank. I really don't. I have no connection whatsoever with that. Money will come and go. It is not what defines me or anything that satisfies me or anything that I care about. What really drives me is, if you think about a list of values, my number one value is my family. My number two value is my friends and my relationships. And they're the things that are the most important thing to me. And work just happens to be part of a vehicle that allows me to have an impact on both my family, my friends, but then also other people that work with me or attend our venues.
I love that.
And you've so you said you're working 7 days, and then you've taken another role on it, Oz Active, as a career ambassador. So did you want to tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, it's really about what I've been talking about the whole time. For me, I failed my HSC. I got 34 in my UAI. School wasn't for me. And I know there's a lot of other kids that get told at that age that they're not smart or they're not good enough. And I was one of those kids. And I think about that, and it frustrates me a little bit, because I know that it's just a different type of intelligence. I'm a kinesthetic learner. Put me in a room today at the age of 40 and I still can't sit still, right? But if you put me in an environment where I'm active and I'm engaged and I'm involved, then I'm going to perform and be one of the better performers in that group. So the school system, from my point of view, is broken, and it's only serving one type of intelligence. It's the person who can sit there in silence, writing down, listening, reading. I'm not that guy. So being able to take people who I think are like me, who love their sport, who love their activity, and who love people, and showing them there's another way, that maybe they didn't go so well in school, but there's another path for them that they can succeed in. That really lights me up, and that really inspires me. And hopefully when I go out to places like TAFEs and universities and schools, to different programs that I'm getting involved in, that one 18-year-old or 19-year-old who sits there and says, what am I going to do with my life, looks at what I've been able to achieve as someone who failed their HSC and was told they weren't smart enough to do their favourite subject by their teachers, and actually goes, you know what? No matter what's happened to me up until this point in my life, there is a path that I can follow. And that doesn't have to be in the fitness industry. It's great if it is, but if it isn't, that's okay. As long as they can walk away from that interaction going, you know what? I do have hope. Or even, I still remember, actually, I'll tell a quick story. I was at my old university. I got a sporting scholarship into uni. I was really lucky. And I'm standing at the front of the university, and they got me in as a guest speaker, which was super bizarre knowing my background. But I stood at the front, and it was the parents with the students. And so I'm there speaking, and I'm telling my story. And it wasn't just the kids who lit up, it was their parents as well, because their parents are sitting there going, I've got this degenerate kid who keeps getting into trouble, right? And I know I once was that degenerate kid, but it wasn't. It was just the fact that you needed somewhere to place your energy, and the classroom wasn't the place. So just seeing those parents and those kids walk away from that interaction with hope was one of the big catalysts to get me involved with Oz Active and try and impact more kids.
Yeah, I've had clients that have had similar experiences to yourself. They're very successful in their life now and career, but they just said, just as a child, just school wasn't for them. And a similar thing, their parents were thinking they would do nothing with their lives. Yeah. And now one works at a university actually in Sydney.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he grew up in Ireland actually. So he said that his whole schooling life, they thought he's not really going to do that much. So he said it's quite ironic. But I think that's a great message you make, Justin. I think that's amazing. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I just think that's awesome, mate. Like, again, like me, I've got grew up with ADHD and I was similar like to your story. Couldn't concentrate, I can't even sit still now. If you ask anyone that works with me, I'm always in and out and I'm annoying 99% of the people I work with. Sorry, guys. But like if I went to school and there was a different pathway or, like I can't read and write properly. So if there was like audio books or something, maybe it could have been a different story for me. But, like the fact that you're showing kids a different avenue I think is very fantastic.
There's an interesting saying that I just heard over the weekend, which is if you want to understand the mind of the successful entrepreneur, look into the mind of the juvenile delinquent.
Yeah, wow.
So, they feel that there's a lot of parallels.
Well, I was going to say Emmanuel, we don't want to say too much, but Emmanuel had a bit of a rough upbringing and then he's very successful in his business. But he's our sponsor, by the way, Fit Living. So shout out to Fit Living. So I think, boys, that was probably
amazing.
Our best 6 again ever. I
mean,
with Matt Gardner, you couldn't understand him because he's a Northern Englishman. We needed subtitles for that. But I think that, what do you think?
Fantastic, mate.
What do you give it, Achilles?
Mate, 11 out of 10.
Right here, he's your boss.
He's my boss.
So that was amazing. We're going to move on, boys, to we're going to talk about the grand finals over the weekend. So Justin is actually a South Sydney supporter. Before we mention South Sydney, I just wanted to speak about Nathan Merritt. We just wanted to send our well wishes to Nathan Merritt. Obviously, he is on life support and struggling at the moment. So from the Weekly Offload, we just wanted to send our not condolences, but just thoughts to the family, the Merritt family.
Get well soon, bud.
Get well soon.
Of you.
Yeah, 100%. But we know Nathan is a fighter. So the game was South Sydney beat the Brisbane Lions 42-22, Brisbane Tigers. And it's interesting because, Justin, actually, you might not know this, but New South Wales has won the last 6 years of this competition. So I guess the narrative used to be that the Queensland Cup was a more or a bigger competition, but actually, it's. I want to ask you, Justin, with COVID, let's link it to your business as well. So rugby league players have struggled. Or they've struggled to bring in new athletes just due to COVID. So basically what Phil Gould was saying, there's no one out there. So it's saturated the market. So anyone that's good, they sort of buy. Did you find that hard with getting trainers to One Playground as well, just after COVID?
Cream rises to the top in hard times, right? So I think what we found was there was a massive world change at that point in time, and there was a lot of restrictions. So you had no internationals coming and there was a lot of different things that were occurring. So what we tended to find was that we had major challenges in certain areas, but in other areas we had a flood of people. But I think over time the cream rises to the top off the back of whatever has occurred in the world around you, and we started to see a constant flood of people coming back in.
Yeah, so that's so Achilles, did you have any thoughts on that match?
Yeah, mate. Well, the Rabbitohs, versus the Tigers. Mate, it's hard. It's hard. The Tigers, I don't think were ever in the game. The Rabbitohs were just too slick. When you got like Tyrone Munro, which is she's a superstar former. I think he's going to be a former Origin player soon. Like in the future, probably play for Australia. He's so slick. He reminds me of a young Greggy Inglis. Just with his jumping abilities, he's only young too. He's only like 17, 18, he was playing SG Borg like last year. So come up and he made his debut this year and absolutely killed it. And you got guys like, Shaq, that he played like the NRL a couple of, last season and this season. Just they were just all over him, the possession rate was like 51%. Their completion rate was 72. Their running meters were like nearly 2,000. So like it's hard to win against like former NRL players.
And Buddy Gordon, did you know he debuted in 2005
Wow.
and he played?
Really?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
he
wow.
played. So he debuted with Benji Marshall and obviously the greats like that.
Yeah.
And then he played over the weekend. So then the weird thing is that some of the people he played with were born
Yeah.
in 2005. So yeah, it's unusual. I know when I ever see a client pop up and it has their date of birth, I don't know how you feel, Achilles, but if it says the year 2000, I just feel really weird. I just think like, how can they be, old enough to come in the gym? Yeah.
It
goes quick.
It goes quick. Yeah. Well, look, the Tigers did play all right. Look, it's hard. Again, there were a couple of standouts for the Tigers. I think, look, when you talk about these young kids, we've seen young Cole Geyer, which is like a son of, one of the great Geyer family. And Tom Rafter played very well. And also, I think they've only got like one NRL guy in there, which is George Jennings. But they were never really in the game, their possession rate was only 49%. Their completions were all right, 73, but they got outran. Their post-contact meters weren't that much either. And, missed tackles at 27, you can't really do that against when you got up against quality sides that have played NRL before. So, look, the score wasn't, I think they scored a couple of late tries, which made it look a little bit better. But, they were never on the park. And like you said, the Queensland Cup was always a bit more prestigious than the NRL Cup. And it's good to see now it's starting to even out.
So, Achilles, question for you. Do you think the Rabbitohs have got what it takes to bounce back next year? I'm a massive Rabbitohs fan. Do you think you saw enough within that New South Wales Cup team to strengthen the first grade side?
Yes, I do. I think the Rabbitohs, I think what lacked with the Rabbitohs this year was a bit of inconsistency and a few injuries, but also, suspensions as well. They do have a team. Latrell Mitchell, he cops a lot of flack, but he's just class. Cody Walker, I think I've seen the interview with Nathan Cleary, and they asked him, who's the best player that you played with, and he said Cody Walker, just natural talent. And they've got the team to do it across the park, and with the inclusion of Jack White coming in, they've got a playing group that could win it for a couple of years, So I think if they just sort that sort of on-field, penalties and injuries and get playing as a team, because I think with the Rabbitohs, they get scrutinised a lot. If they're doing well, they're on top. But then, because they've got the talent there, and when they start losing a couple of games, it sort of plays with them psychologically. So to answer your question, yes, I do think they could win it, and they've got the playing group there.
Yeah, to close off this chat about the State Cup, Rabbitohs were my tip to win the grand final before the year started. And then when they knocked over Storm and Penrith in consecutive weeks, I remember the second game, I think I was in Bali watching it, and I said to Polly, I'm like, they'll win it. I think Souths will win it. Obviously, it looked very bad by the end of the season. Lucky on our NRL review, I changed my tip to Broncos. That was probably 8 weeks out, and I was so close to being right. But Achilles pipped it at the end with Penrith. So I might ask Justin, we're going to do our NRLW chat. So Achilles has become a superstar with this chat, Justin. So it might be like us being with you in terms of business. I'm intimidated by him on this chat. He's been excellent. But I might ask you, Justin, in terms of women's sport, obviously you have a daughter. Well, all three of us have a daughter. So I might ask you, in terms of women's sport, do you think that's a positive, or do you think the direction that they're going in at the moment will benefit, say, your daughter when she wants to play sport?
Women's World Cup of soccer was life-changing.
Amazing.
Yeah, best women's sporting event I've ever seen. I've always been a big fan of women's tennis, but I think that Women's World Cup of soccer, which has been traditionally a men's game, really put women's sport on the map. Yeah. And you could see the quality of the players and the passion of the crowds, and there was really no difference. And arguably, the games were as enjoyable to watch as any of the men's game have ever been. The amount of support that the Australian public gave to that tournament, but even globally, made that the most watched, I believe the most watched women's sporting event of all time.
Wow.
And that was just inspiring to see. So that going across codes, that's great as well. For my daughter, being able to recognise that there's heroes that she can follow within the sporting realms across different sports, I think it's just amazing. And I think the Women's World Cup of soccer in particular was a real shining light about women's sport.
I think, to back up that, I think the NRL do a lot to support the women's game. And I think, like, you know, take it with this grand final, it was quality grand final. So much quality, like the possession rate for the girls, like the Knights versus the Titans, it was like 50%. You know, there wasn't much separating between them, but like again, like the men's game, come off the man, come off the woman, come off the hour. Tamika Upton, our girl Tamika Upton, she was absolutely fantastic. Like she just, you know, literally won that game off the back of her running.
And she was, I had written down here, she was the first player since Jonathan Thurston in 2015 to win the Dally M and grand final player of the match. So that's that's a big, and we have wrapped her on this podcast endlessly. Another one I wanted to mention was Yasmin Clydesdale, which Achilles was also spotted her really early in the season, and she finished with 184 meters from 24 runs. So I want to give a shout out to our NRLW expert because she was amazing in that match.
Well, if I could give you some stats of Yasmin Clydesdale, sorry to cut you off. She came first with the 21 hit-ups. Again, with 184 run meters, only to come second to our girl, Tamika Upton. She ran 195 meters. She was first in the tackles with 25 tackles. She was first in the post-contact meters with 77. And she did 2 offloads. Like she is your workhorse. And I think I mentioned, when you watch that grand final, like the Titans was so fantastic. Like they kept the Sydney Roosters to 0, which was like the most attacking team. They murdered everyone like throughout the season, and the Titans kept it to 0. And the fact that Yasmin Clydesdale came first in the post contact meters is amazing.
Yeah, and so the Gold Coast Titans, they finished last in 2022. So for them to come back and make the grand finals a massive huge effort. And Jamie Chapman, she scored a hat trick, and Polly was watching it and she thought she was unstoppable. She's like, where did she even come from? She was amazing, wasn't she? I'm pretty sure she's another teenager or very young player in the side as well.
Very, very young. Yeah, she's so amazing. 14 tackle breaks, 3 line breaks. She was awesome. And I also want to give a shout out to Lauren Brown. She gives all 3 tries was off Lauren Brown's passing. She did 3 line break assists. She kicked 107 meters, which is great. Like for a team that got sort of dominated, but they were in the game, you know. And also, it doesn't help too when there's. I think the star of the Titans team was their fullback, Yvonne Paletti. It didn't help when she got injured, you know. But she was playing on one leg and she still ran for 220 meters, which is insane. So look, the Titans played well, but it just comes down, when it comes down to those 1%, it just comes down to talent, you know, and the work ethic. And she was Dally M winner for a reason. And Tamika Upton, mate, I was like, me and my missus were jumping up and down on the couch when she scored that last run. I think I sent the boys a video.
Yeah. I was the opposite because I tipped the Titans on this show. So I was the opposite. I really thought the Titans had that. It's like similar to what you were saying, Justin, that not skill, but just will. Yeah. Just had that hard work ethic, because I was at the game before when they beat the Roosters and just watching live. Roosters had all the skill. They have all the big names in their NRLW, the Roosters, and it was like a massive effort for them to even make the grand final. So unlucky.
Yeah, congratulations to Newcastle Knights.
Yeah, 2 in a row as
well. 2 in a row.
I mean,
and they're only a young club. They came into the grade in 2021. And they won 22, now 23. And I think they're enough to do the next year as well. So
yeah, 100%. We'll close off the NRLW chat with just saying that Achilles and I have loved the NRLW.
Amazing.
Our partners and ourselves have absolutely loved the women's game. And I'm glad, Justin, you actually mentioned the Women's World Cup, because I do think it does translate. And as you said, changed I heard someone say it even changed the mindset or landscape of Australian sport forever, or even the Australian psyche of women's sport. So yeah.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. It was life-changing. I think going back and, in another lifetime, there was times when you just wouldn't be taking women's sports seriously at all. And to see women's, soccer, women's rugby league, and all women's sport really become this, peak performance with professional teams and sponsors supporting it is just amazing for our daughters to be able to look up and be able to see that there's a pathway for them to be able to pursue their talents. And it's just an amazing change that is really welcomed.
Yeah. To say, like with the daughters, like we all got daughters, and my daughter's like 17 and she absolutely loves watching the WNRL. Shout out to Talia.
Wait, how old are you, Achilles? You're looking young.
But yeah, like just the girls that are played in the NRL right now are inspiring the next generation. And like my daughter, she's a massive para fan, but she rather watch the women's game and just like, and just for that, like for any girl that's growing up at 17, their minds are gone. Like especially my daughter, she's got the ADHD, but she loves watching and supports the women's game. So, they're inspiring the next generation, which is amazing.
So should we move on to the NRL Grand Final? Unfortunately, another wrong tip for me. It was so close. So when I was 24, I don't know if you watched it, Justin, but when I was 24-8, I was so confident. They looked completely gone, didn't they, Penrith? But and as we were talking about this whole podcast, when there's a will, there's a way, mate. And champions, you can't keep champions down, can you?
Mate, come off the man, come off the hour. Nathan Cleary, amazing. I just want to give a stat. The Broncos, they were the completion rate was 97. The Panthers were 97%, and they made one error in the whole game. And this is how amazing the Broncos played. They were still in it right up to the last 20th minute. Like any other stat and any other team, 97% with one error, you're winning by 50. And that's the testament to how the Broncos played. We know how good Herbie Farmworth was, but mate, he absolutely killed it that night. I didn't think I thought he was a good player, but in a big stage like that, he just absolutely killed it. Him, Payne Haas, Pat Carrigan.
I was going to say, Payne Haas, he had 6 runs for 70 metres and made 22 tackles, which is quite high, isn't it? And then Ezra Mann had that hat trick, and that's when I thought they had it. Achilles was running away on our group chat, on the Weekly Offload group chat. We couldn't hear anything from him. No, actually, you did say they're not out of it. I remember Darko saying, he was saying it's over, and you said never. So,
well, Darko literally wrote, I'm going to call it game over.
Yes. He's a bit of a jinx.
Sorry, Darko.
I must say, yeah.
I think, look, what Brisbane played really well, and I think they were the better team, even though the stats don't say. I think what changed the whole dynamic, and I've seen this on the podcast, and I think it was Brendan Smith, who plays for the Roosters. I think he said that the Broncos had the perfect game plan where they were used to defending with Isaiah Yeo coming off the ruck. On that 20 minutes, Isaiah Yeo went off. Luai went off, and the ball was going straight to Nathan Cleary. As soon as that happened, Cleary broke the line, passed it to Leota, scored, and the Broncos looked shell-shocked because the ball was going straight to Cleary and something they didn't train for and hadn't seen before. And then that last 20 minutes was just Cleary was just waving his wand and just bamboozling them and stole them right under their feet.
Look, it's one of the best individual displays that I've ever seen from any sportsman in any code.
Yeah.
And I'm not a Nathan Cleary fan, okay, but you can't do anything but praise that performance. It was absolutely incredible. And for the way that he just dominated that field and literally from 24-8 down to come back and win that game almost single-handedly with 2 of his best players not on the park alongside him was just a masterclass, and it's so impressive.
And he scored, that the last try he scored, Brendan Smith, I heard on the podcast also said it was 5-on-3.
Yeah.
Down that blind side. So in rugby league terms, that is a massive no-no. They should not score 5-on-3, and he still found a way to score. I know they're fatigued, the Broncos, but as you said, I think probably the biggest or best performance by one player in any code. Definitely
Absolutely.
this year and arguably ever. You don't know, because if he didn't have that belief system, it was kind of a very American-y. I don't know if you watch much, if you boys watch much Super Bowl, but when the Patriots came back, they did a documentary afterwards, and a lot of them, this is very American to be like this, but they were saying this will be the greatest story of all. But sorry about the accent. This will be the greatest story of all time, and they were down. I can't remember the exact score, but I think 3 touchdowns, which in gridiron American football is a lot.
Huge, yeah.
But they never died, and they won. They won that game, the Patriots. So that was probably 2 or 3 years ago. But yeah, if you watch a documentary, they're all saying like, think about the story. This will be the greatest story. And they came back and win. And I felt like he, in particular, still had that mindset that they were going to win. It was interesting too. You know, when he made the break and passed it back to Leota and he scores a try, that's the first time that Penrith players were not jumping all over their player. That's the first time this season, or I'll call it and say in 4 years, that I've never seen them embrace a player. So I didn't even think the other Penrith players thought they were going to win. But Cleary was like, let's go, grab the ball, let's go. And then I think once they scored the second try, it looked like an avalanche, didn't it, really, for the Brisbane Broncos?
To me, watching it live, it was the first time that I've seen Penrith look really tired. The pace of the game was so intense, to the point, like, after the game, I looked at the stats. Dylan Edwards ran for 306 meters. And like, he is the fittest guy on the field, and he looks spent. Like, usually if we break through, you always see him backing up, right? Like to run for 150 meters, to run 190 meters, he ran for 306 meters. And like, you know, any other game, like, he's scoring 3 or 4 tries from that. And like, but the pace of the game and the quality of the game was great. And just, again, like the women's game, it just come down to the individual player, step up at the right moments. And if that doesn't put him into immortality or, you know, up there with the greats, then I don't know what would. Look, to win a game off your back like that, when the chips are down, I think for me is right up in the conversations with your Andrew Johns, your Lockiers and stuff.
And can I say, obviously we've mentioned Cleary, but Fisher Harris, he ran for 95 meters and he broke 6 tackles. And I thought when he had his second stint, he really changed the momentum of the game. We've talked about all year on how the Broncos forwards on this podcast, their quality of minutes are unmatched by any other team. And it looked like when it was 24-8, it looked like it was going to go that way, didn't it? The forwards were rolling forward. Penrith looked like they couldn't stop them. But as you said, just Nathan Cleary, mate.
Just quality. And look,
in the pack.
And like the outside backs for Penrith were huge too. Like, I know we talk about Herbie Farnworth and, you know, Katoni Staggs, but the back three for Penrith were huge in this game, you know. And they do such a good job. And Brisbane did a good job just to hold them back as well. So it was a high-quality game, and I think it was the perfect Cinderella ending to go 3-peat. Like, you know, it hasn't been done since the mighty Para Eagles. But
my mum was not happy. She wasn't happy about that. Can you confirm that you were supporting the Broncos, Justin?
Hey, you know what? I was a bit of a fence sitter for that game. I was a supporter of it being an incredible game, which it was. It was hard for me because I really wanted to go for Brisbane because I definitely didn't want Penrith to win. That was the number one goal. But at the same time, being a massive South fan, watching Reynolds, you're a bit torn. You're like, you love him, but do you really want him to win in a jersey that's not yours? So it's a tough one. So deep inside, absolutely going for Brisbane, you know, wanting those guys to win, and especially watching them play really felt like they deserved it, while at the same time, Penrith not giving up, showing, you know, the strength of the team right through to the 80th minute and them coming through with a victory. It was just something, it's a sporting event I'll never forget, to be honest.
100%.
Matty, I want to ask you a question. How did you think Penrith looked, and how do you think their future looks? Could they possibly be the Queensland team in the club side? You know how Queensland went 7. I mean, they're all young. Cleary's only 25. You would say he's got at least another 5-6 years. And like Sean Johnson, how old is he? And he's in his prime. If they can keep the same playing group and with their systems, could they be unstoppable and get the 7 in a row?
The only reason why I don't think that maybe can't happen is with Penrith's game plan that they play every week. I don't know if it translates with Origin. So you know how it's funny when you said Justin mentioned it. It was good that he mentioned it of Isaiah Yeo and Luai going off. Isaiah Yeo plays essentially like a second receiver.
Yep.
So he passes it out the back. But in State of Origin, you're used to that fast running, wingers doing hit ups. It's almost a simpler game in State of Origin. I've found it hasn't translated exactly to State of Origin at the moment. Maybe they might have to go with Cleary because he was forced into a second receiver. Maybe that might be an option. I just think, the game plan hasn't exactly translated. In NRL week to week, they're a machine. They're a juggernaut. They're very hard to break down to find a cog in that machine. But with State of Origin, it's a different beast, isn't it?
If I can just say as well, the salary cap is the biggest difference between NRL and Origin. These players that they keep losing year on year, how many more can they lose before that shine goes away? Crichton's next. Luai's probably coming after that. How can they hang on to all of these players? And yes, they have a machine where they keep producing genius players, which they've proven they can do. But what's Brisbane started to do? The young guns coming through that club, they're going to be better next year than what they were this year, in spite of losing a couple of players. I think the Roosters are looking really strong for next year, I would say.
Yeah.
And then if the Rabbitohs young players that are coming through from New South Wales Cup can step into the first grade team, in spite of the second half of their year, those 4 teams there alongside Melbourne with Pappenhausen back, I think you've got a really interesting season next year.
100%. I think it's a good point you said Brisbane Broncos, because a lot of people are saying this grand final is similar to when Penrith played Melbourne and lost their first grand final. You saw those young players a bit raw. They got overwhelmed on the day. They ended up losing 26-20 just from memory, and they actually came back, Penrith, in that game, but they couldn't do it in the end. So it was funny. I watched that game during the week and I just thought, I wonder if they could do that again. And then it came to fruition. Obviously, they did it. They did it again. But it's a good point. Are Broncos the next superpower?
Parramatta.
We're trying to not be biased on this podcast, Achilles.
I think, Broncos have got a young side. That's youth is on the side. I don't know who will replace Reynolds, but Reynolds has probably got, I don't know when he's contracted to, but he looks like he can go for another couple of seasons.
I think Brisbane have said they are offering him another year. Can I just ask Justin, when he was signed for the Broncos, what did you make of that? Because I know South fans were split. Some were saying he is too old or you should put in a new halfback, or were you thinking like he's also even the sentimental value that he grew up next to the ground and everything like that. So what were you thinking at that time?
I understand the decision the club made because you had 2 good young halfbacks coming through in Lachlan Ilias and also Dawkins coming through, who's the player of the year in the New South Wales Cup. So letting go of one of your veterans to make way for 2 young up-and-comers was the decision the club made at the time. And I think if they had their time again, they might not have made the same decision. But you also had a lot of years when Reynolds was injured, and that was a consistent part of his game. And Brisbane have been lucky enough where he's been relatively injury-free for a couple of years. But you didn't know that was going to happen. So where do you go? Do you do what Penrith's done and bet on the future? Or do you continue to invest all of your resources into the older crowd? Now, you could flip a coin and, one time you would have been right and one time you would have been wrong, and Lachlan Ilias would have gone off and played for someone else and been, the best new player to come to the tournament, and you just wouldn't know. So I think it's a really hard decision. I think the club made the best decision with the information they had at the time.
I think Joey Johns wrapped Lachlan Ilias saying like he's the next big thing, and I think he will come good. I see there's shades. I mean, he just needs time. At the hardest thing is when you've got in favour with someone like Andrew Reynolds, everyone loves him. Everyone loves how he plays. Like, even if you're not a South fan, you just love the way he plays. He plays tough. He's very skillful. So going from that to a new superstar, everyone's always going to compare you to that superstar. And I think Lachlan Ilias will have his time. And I think, the South's fans and South's teams need to persist with him because he will get the goods.
Yeah, and I think with halves as well, it's like what you're both saying. I guess it's hard to have an old head on a young body.
Yeah.
Obviously, they mature a bit later. So most of your halves are 25. That's why I think Cleary is so amazing in the fact that he's done so well at this age. I think he's shown his maturity over this grand final over the years.
And he's made Ezra Mann look good too, you know, like Ezra Mann, talent, but he's just allowed Ezra Mann to be Ezra Mann. If Ezra Mann didn't have someone like a Reynolds inside of him, I think Broncos would struggle. And I think Reynolds was their missing link.
Before we move on, Justin, can we get? Well, hopefully you do come on this show again. But if you didn't like it and you don't, can we get your grand final? I'm putting you on the spot. My grand final prediction for next year.
Ooh,
it's a tough question.
You know what? I would say Penrith's going to do it again. That's my first guess based on what I've seen so far this season. But if I was to pick a dark horse, I'd be picking the Roosters. I think they came good at the end of last year. They've made a couple of great signings. I think they've got an amazing team across the park, and I think they're underperforming in terms of the quality of players they have on the park. Could be completely wrong, and I really am a massive South fan, so I don't know why I'm saying the Roosters.
You're going against every instinct in your body.
But I just think they've had a couple of seasons where they haven't performed at their best, and I feel like they're going to come good.
Yeah, very good. All right, should we go to our last segment? So you did very well, Justin. I put you on the spot. That's why you're the big boss man, mate. Our last segment is our question from our millions and millions of the Weekly Offload fans. So this is from Vinny, my client, actually. Shout out to Vinny. He trains at Marrickville. I've been training him for 3 years since I've been back in Australia. He absolutely loves he hated the gym before he started training with me, and now he loves it. I've given him an A and a B program for 3 years, and he keeps coming back. He loves it. He's gotten so much stronger, put on 10 kilos of muscle. So I said I'd give him a shout out. So shout out to Vinny.
Let's go, Vinny.
He said, I'm more of an AFL fan, but love the show. He said, I was wondering if you could ask Justin what sport would be the hardest to come back from injury. I know for you it's difficult because you played soccer or football, depending where you come from. But what do you think might be the hardest injury or sport to come back from?
Look, I'd probably say basketball. Basketball will be one of the toughest sports to come back from, simply because you're changing direction so often. You've got all that damage to your joints that just isn't seen as often. If you look at the NBA players, they're also playing 82 games. So you see a lot of athletes within that sport that pick up a lot of injuries and really struggle to reach their best again. So I think the NBA is probably up there.
What do you think, Achilles? We'll go to you, mate.
I think a lot of contact sports, again with basketball, and I think a lot of contact sports, but I think in the martial arts game, especially something like MMA, if you been concussed and been knocked out a few times, you know, there's science to say that your body sort of protects you. So you end up getting like a glass jaw. And that's something that you can't help. Like you can rehab all your injuries and come back. But like once your jaw starts going, and which, you know, you see like a lot of people get knocked out and concussions too, you're never that same fighter. You know, especially if you've come back, if you've got knocked out and try to come back, you know, your timing's not there. You get a little bit hesitant. You know, the heart's willing, but the body sort of breaks down. So, you know, and youth isn't by your side anymore. So as you get older, I think, you know, once you get like serious injuries in like a martial arts game like the UFC, kickboxing, even boxing, you know, it's hard to come back from those, you know, hard knockouts or, you know, hard injuries.
Just one more before we go, Justin. So when you had your injuries, what did you feel your confidence was knocked? Because I know a lot of professional athletes say that when they come back, it's just that yard of pace that they lose. Did you find your confidence was knocked?
Yeah, definitely confidence gets knocked. And I also think injuries are dependent on position and sport. You know, for me, I was a centre midfielder. So I was, you know, clocking up over 10 Ks a game, and I had an Achilles issue. So when you put those two things together, the training level that I needed to persist at and the amount of meters I needed to run on the field, it really affected it massively. Whereas if I was a striker and I was floating around the field for half the game and then just had to run in bursts, it would have been a different recovery process. But yeah, to answer your question, I think your confidence gets knocked. Your ability to train, which I think is one of the biggest issues, gets set back. And then once you've lost a bit of that momentum, it can be hard to get it back.
It took everything in my body not to make a joke when you said I had an Achilles issue. I was just going to say, I was about to say, I think you got one now, man. It took me everything, but I was like, you're the host, just let him speak. So, boys, I think this definitely has been our greatest podcast. I'd like to thank Justin. He is basically, for anyone watching at home or listening, he is like the Andrew Johns, Jonathan Thurston, Billy Slater, GOAT of the fitness industry, all mixed into one package. So,
Amen to that.
So we're going to close off for the weekly offload. So we have taken a load off for this week. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.